We got to figure that out eventually. But I always love the abrupt ending to that song now that we're doing SquadCast from home. Max, SquadCast from home, the Eric Carlson episode number 65. What is going on, dude?
Oh, a little bit of everything. A little bit of everything.
Absolutely.
Much like the sports world, just a little bit of everything, my friend. How about yourself?
Oh, we're going to get right into this episode, Max, because there is so much chaos happening in the sports world, especially in the NHL, and I absolutely love it. Let's check in really quick. We got Katie Fleury checking in. Myron's checking in. Our dad, Rod Monroe, my dad, but your dad too, by extension, is checking in. Robin Wildy says, good evening. You can roll through these comments as we go here, Max. Aaron Matthews is checking in as well. We put the YouTube comment in the Facebook feed if you want to watch over on YouTube as well. There's me over on YouTube just saying hey. We're on TikTok as well, so we're going to have a great time tonight as we roll through. Halfway through this episode, we're going to get the voice of the Lethbridge Hurricanes, Dustin Forbes, joining us to talk about the WHL trade deadline. We're really excited about that because the WHL is heating up. It's an interesting year, obviously, with COVID. Teams are playing, teams are not playing, but at the end of the day, they all got to win. And there's some teams that are making huge arms race type pushes to get some big names and big boys. And we'll talk about that. The Red Deer Rebels making a splash just hours ago. So Max, let's get into it right now. I'm going to let you start this one off with the big topic. I mean, this is on everybody's mind. We got to start here. We cannot bury the lead. Evander Kane. San Jose Sharks have terminated the contract of Evander Kane, and all the rumors are flying around that he is now going to be an Edmonton Oiler. Now, it may not happen that way, but all signs indicate that it's happening. So, initial thoughts on, would you have added Evander Kane? Let's get that out of the way first, and then what do you think about his potential fit with the Edmonton Oilers?
Yeah, according to a new NHL hot insider, former referee Tim Peel, by all indications of what his sources may be, yeah, the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, for myself, as an Nashville Predators fan, I'm not sure I'd be adding him into that mix. But as an Oiler fan, I mean, you got to add something. You got to get a bit of a spark in that locker room right now. Obviously, things have been trending in the wrong direction since, I guess, probably well over a month now. So to add Evander Kane to the lineup, going to have a strong locker room. I don't necessarily know if the Oilers have a strong enough one, given everything that's transpired in the last couple of weeks. But if you're Ken Holland, you got to do something. So with that being said, it'll be interesting to see that when the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, if Evander Kane ends up an Oiler coming back north of the border to play in Canada for, I'm assuming, on just a 1-year league min type of deal. But regardless, it's definitely interesting. He's an ultra talented hockey player, just has had some off the ice issues. We'll see if it maybe translates to him being a motivated player for the Oilers on the ice, should he join the orange and blue.
Yeah, and my opinion on it has been all along, like, you take all the off ice stuff out of this, and Evander Kane is just what number would he be? He's a weird number, isn't he? Like 61 or something.
Evander Kane?
Yeah, is he 9? He's 9.
Oh, come on, man.
Either way, you take all the stuff out of it and you just put him in a jersey and put him on the ice, and he's kind of the type of player that every team should want to add to their lineup, especially if you're making a playoff run or you need to get some sparks going on the ice. So for the Oilers, a team with legendary lack of secondary scoring, well documented, I'll at least say. For them to add a guy like Evander Kane potentially to their first line, or even if he goes on the second line, or even if he goes on the third line and puts a big boost onto the third line, whatever line he goes on to, he's the type of guy Edmonton's been needing and wanting, and now he's coming for no assets and a cheap contract, like you mentioned, Max. So if that's the case, if they can handle him, this could be a massive addition, and it could push the Oilers over the hump from the annual Oilers struggles that we've seen for a decade now.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, just kind of
sum it up.
It's
from Tim Peel too, if you want to put that in there.
Let's do that.
There you go.
Add it in there.
Tim Peel.
Good stuff. Hot insider, hot off the presses.
Yeah,
that's the guy right there. That's the insider everybody's looking for. Even Biz
Nasty's like, well, we're waiting because the official thing hasn't happened yet. But There he is.
Yeah,
But
ultimately we'll see what happens here. Again, it's a move that, I mean, again, if you want a bit of a locker room shakeup, this is certainly it. I mean, by all indications, it might not be the most positive one, but who knows, right? People change, and given the last 4 months of what Evander Kane's gone through in this 2021, now the start of 2022, maybe he's got some New Year's resolutions, and that's to clean up his act off the ice so that he can be a productive member on it for any given team. And yeah, with that being said, the opportunity is certainly going to be there in Edmonton, right? I think he slots in personally as a top 6 forward. That's a guy that you could slide on your left wing, first or second line, playing with Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. And you know what? Maybe he's that guy that sticks with Connor. Maybe he's the guy that, you know what, you can afford to move Leon down to the second line and add a little depth and stretch your lineup out a little bit. So it'll be really, really interesting to see if it happens. We're going to look really stupid if we got 10 minutes of content and he signs in Calgary. But with that being said, by all indications, we'll see when the deal gets closed. But yeah, definitely one of the topics of discussion in the hockey world today.
Absolutely. Let's move on, because we do have to cover a lot of stuff in about 10 minutes. I guess we still have.
We got 12. We got
12 or 15 minutes before our man Dustin comes in here. The one that just blew my mind today, and this is the type of stuff, Max, that as hockey fans, we want to see more of this type of conversation going on. I will put it up so you can put it on the screen so people know what we're talking about here. But there you go. If you want to put that up there, put it in the shared screen so we pop up on the side. I'll let you. You got it. You'll click through. You'll find. There it is. This is just amazing to me. Bobby Clarke. I mean, at this point in his career, what does Bobby Clarke have to lose? He doesn't care about anything anymore. He comes in and just like drops a bomb out of nowhere on the Cam and Strick podcast. So this is Cam Jansen, former NHLer. And what's Strickland's first name? Is it Mike?
Andy,
thank you. He's a reporter in St. Louis. They have a podcast together, and it's a good podcast. It really is. But Bobby Clarke came on there and just said that none of the scouts in Philadelphia wanted to draft Nolan Patrick, and that Ron Hextall went rogue on his own and drafted Nolan Patrick without the scouts' consent, essentially. And I just think this is hilarious. Obviously, Ron Hextall has big connections to Brandon. He played with the Brandon Wheat Kings. Nolan Patrick was with the Brandon Wheat Kings, and there was a lot of connections there, deep roots, you might say. And all the scouts wanted Cale Makar. And, I mean, looking at it now, that was probably the right call. And Nolan Patrick is still kind of getting his career back on track. But then Bobby Clarke went on to say that Hextall made that choice himself, and there were other choices made in our draft that we're paying for. And when he says draft, he means plural. They go on to say that we've got 2 or 3 first-round picks that are never going to play in the NHL, and that's why we're struggling. Hexy made some huge mistakes. Now, there is a couple other draft picks, Max, that, you know, the Twitter sleuths have found out that he's probably referring to German Rubtsov. And there was another guy, honestly, I can't even remember the name. And that's kind of where they're at. They had a couple first and second round picks that aren't going to pan out. And Nolan Patrick never panned out. And they're struggling now because of that. Obviously, that draft was now 4 or 5 years ago. So those are the players you would expect to now be in your lineup and be real contributors, especially the high picks. But Max, there's another story too that came out that apparently he did the Braden Shen deal without asking anybody. He could have acquired Ryan O'Reilly and decided not to. So there's some stuff coming out. I want to hear your thoughts on this. I love this. What do you think?
Hindsight's 2020. And
Sure.
when it comes to Bobby Clarke here, obviously a lot when he speaks in Philly and about Philly, people listen. I mean, again, this is very, very easy to say that if you draft Cale Makar, obviously your franchise heads in a different direction, this, that, and the other thing. And I don't know. I had some very interesting conversations with another couple massive hockey fans. We also have to look at the Philadelphia Flyers from a player development standpoint as well. It's one thing to pick these guys. It's another thing for them all not to pan out, right?
Sure.
You're looking at a guy like Morgan Frost as a perfect example, who's just starting to get his feet wet after a couple of seasons. But when it comes to Nolan Patrick, he's just the guy that didn't quite pan out. When it comes to Cale Makar and you look at him in Colorado, obviously they've got a bit of a track record for developing some really, really good talent in their system. And it also comes with identifying talent as well. But yeah, with that being said, I think that's a little bit easy to throw stones from the glass house here in some of these comments. Ron Hextall had a relatively good tenure as the GM of the Flyers. Was he not there when they went to the Stanley Cup back in 2010? Even dating back to
that? He would have been there.
Or was that Fletcher's team?
No,
Chuck
that would have
Fletcher's team.
been. I want to say maybe Mike
That's him now.
Holmgren was leading.
Possibly, yeah. Sorry, but either way, regardless, there's like I said, easy to
Paul Holmgren.
Paul Holmgren. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Easy to throw stones though when it comes to guys that didn't pan out 4 or 5 years later. And you know what? Again, Bobby Clark's going on a podcast. Like you said, he's got nothing to lose. He'll throw some shade out there. And again, it gets people talking in the hockey world about who made mistakes, who didn't. Bobby Clark made his fair share of mistakes when he was in leadership positions as well. But yeah, it's very, very interesting because it's topical, right? Cale Makar is obviously a generational defenseman in terms of offensive talent. And I mean, with that being said, he's also got a lot of really good pieces to play with in Colorado that really help put some light on that talent. But yeah, again, with it being just one of the examples, I know that there are a multitude and Philly fans are certainly not happy, but he's gone. Like Hexy's gone. He's with a division rival now, so maybe that's also
Patrick's gone. And Patrick's gone.
And Patrick's gone as well. But I think this is Bobby Clark kind of coming from the old school Broad Street bully days of, hey, you still got a job in the league. It's with our fiercely hated rival in the same state of Pennsylvania. Maybe it's time to maybe throw a little shade, provide a bit of a distraction. But with that being said, the Flyers got bigger problems than Ron Hextall. I mean, this has continued on since his absence as well. It's just something that you just can't seem to figure out. So is what it is. But yeah, it's definitely interesting comments coming from somebody with as much, I guess, lead in the pencil that Bobby Clark has in Philly sports. So
absolutely. Robin Wildly coming in saying, after that comment from Bobby Clark, the goalposts are getting scared when Ron Hextall walks by. I love this stuff. I mean, I wish there was more of this, and you don't see it a ton in sports in general because, like you said, Max, it's kind of throwing stones from a glass, like you said, right? But I loved hearing the behind the scenes stuff that none of the scouts wanted Nolan Patrick.
I like seeing it on HBO though, when there's actual like video evidence behind it. I don't like seeing the quotes from a guy who's well past his prime in his hockey evaluation days. And you know what? This is not throwing shade at Bobby Clark either. Obviously, he had a hell of a career. Not a man to disrespect in the game. But like I said, it's just easy to take these cheap shots on a podcast and kind of go from there. But I think it's just got to do with the fierce rivalry, more so of the ignoring that, like I said, Philadelphia, name a guy that they've truly had that's homegrown talent that's turned into an elite player for them, other than James Van Riemsdyk, who has since left, come back. You know what I mean? Like, and even then, people were getting impatient with him.
Claude Giroux, Provorov.
12, 13 years ago in a different era as well. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, I would argue in the context of these comments, you know?
I would argue Provorov is in that conversation.
Yeah. In this they hit on that pick, and guess who drafted him?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's move on, Max, because like I said, we're scrambling right through it all here. Jack Eichel. Now this one, Jesse Granger tweeted out this video, and it promptly got 240,000 views. Jack Eichel is back skating with the Golden Knights. Of course, now he's in a red jersey. He's non-contact, but this is a sign that hockey fans in general should be pretty happy about. Because Jack Eichel being on the Golden Knights is going to be, I hope, explosive, dynamic, insert buzzword here. I want to see this. I think everyone's, really clamoring for him to play on a line with Pacioretty and Stone. We talked about this last episode. I still think he's going to be on a line with Marchessault and Smith, or depending on how they have to work out the salary cap, maybe somebody else slides in there, just given how good Chandler Stevenson has been with Pacioretty and Stone this year. But the fact that he's close, the fact that he's skating, I saw another clip. I don't know if it's going to be, if I scroll, this might get dangerous here. But if I know there's another video out there of him practicing on some skills on his own, and he looks pretty good already. So this is good. Max, are you excited to see Jack Eichel get back onto the ice?
Oh, without a doubt, right? That was the saga of the summer. It was, when are we going to see him dealt? When are we going to get him get him to the surgery that he obviously wanted, and see what the rehabilitation process looks like? It's going to be really, really interesting, not necessarily for Jack Eichel. We know what Jack Eichel is capable of in terms of the hockey player that he is. Probably a top 15 hockey player in the world, maybe even top 10 when he's truly at full strength. So when it comes to this Golden Knights team, I look at the odds of them winning the Stanley Cup at 8-1 right now. That number is going to get significantly smaller in terms of the payout if you pick them even a month or so from now when Jack Eichel starts playing games. I think he fits seamlessly in the lineup. They're not expecting him to be the guy right away. He's got a lot of insulation in that lineup, top to bottom in the crease. It's going to give him the time that he needs to get back up to speed. But with the ultra talent that he possesses, I really don't think it's going to take him a ton of time. And if you're looking at an over-under in terms of how long it takes for him to make an impact on the score sheet, I think he does it as early as his first period. Like, the guy is just so incredibly talented, and I can't wait to see him back on the ice. But with that being said, it also makes it a scary proposition for anybody else in the Western Conference if you're trying to beat the Vegas Golden Knights round 1 through 3, especially with Max Pacioretty being Kucherov'd, as they say. That can be the only assumption at this point as they try to get the cap constraints figured out before Eichel comes back into the lineup, and then subsequently having to make sure that they're under the threshold for the rest of the regular season, heading into what should be undoubtedly a long playoff run.
Absolutely. It is an exciting time of the year right now. Evander Kane, obviously, we touched on him already. Some trade deadline rumors, they're starting. I know it feels like we should be hearing a lot more because we're in mid-January now. But we all have to remember, I got to do it myself. We got to put ourselves a month back because the deadline has been pushed a month, of course, with the Olympics and everything that was supposed to happen. At the same time, now with the Olympics not happening, now the biggest thing is going to be all this rescheduling of games and getting those all fit in. So we're going to start seeing a lot of that news coming out right away. Max, do we have Dustin logged in yet?
It doesn't look to be, but we got a lot of things going on the bottom. There he is. Absolutely. I just had to scroll down a little bit further. We've got a lot of tabs open in the old StreamYard here. So yeah, probably best time we hit that break and hit him on the other side. Hey,
yeah. Why don't we hit a commercial break here really quick? And when we come back, we're going to dive into the WHL, the Western Hockey League, because we have voice of the Lethbridge Hurricanes, Dustin Forbes, checking in with us in just, what is it, a minute and a half now, 2 minutes? I think right around there. All right, we'll see you in a couple minutes shortly. Either way.
Your fans deserve an incredible arena experience. It's time for an upgrade. Stunning graphics. Revenue opportunities are just the beginning with our in-venue display systems and scoring technology. Let us help you find the best solution for your facility. EDG, always delivering the best fan experience.
Everyday hoop life.
Is it time to take your event online? Bring it to IKS Live. We've got a fully customized virtual event platform with remote guest support for your next fundraiser, talk show, conference, performance, and more. IKS Live offers live streaming to Facebook Live and YouTube and pre-recorded capabilities, both in our studio with green screen available and on location with pre-production and post-production services. IKS Live, the proud producer of The Rod Peterson Show and The Recovery Hour. Visit us at ikslive.ca.
And we're back. Again, love the abrupt endings. Why not? We are broadcasting from home, but I do want to give a big shout out. Where am I? To our friends over at IKS Media, IKS Live. Those guys for 62 episodes of 63 episodes of the show, let us sit in their great studios. We were able to use all the great equipment there, and we'll be back there at some point throughout our existence. But for now, we are from home for the next stretch. Max is busy learning, so to prove to his dad that he's not a fool. Is that correct, Max?
As per the Billy Madison quote, yes, that I believe to a T is exactly what it is.
Absolutely. With that in mind, I also want to give a shout out, and I will be cracking this in our third segment of the show. Original 16, Great Western Brewery. I got the mixed berry hard seltzer here going on tonight. Big fan of the hard seltzers. Of course, they have all the Original 16 and Great Western beers as well, which adorn my fridge downstairs, I will say, Max. And they are delicious, of course. So shout out to them. Hoop Life Basketball are doing big things, Max. We're going to have Andrew on soon because they're starting a live streaming service for all of their games at their new facility. Super pumped. IKS is also, where am I? IKS is also involved in that as well. So I have a little bit of a happy, proud dad thing going on with how IKS and Hoop Life are coming together. And also RBI Baseball, of course, our good friends, Chris, Tanner, Ring, Andrew, all the great people over at RBI Baseball. Super pumped that we're involved with them, and they're back on board for another stretch of time as well. So we'll have to talk to Chris soon because we want to get catched up. We got to get catched up with Chris too. Anyways, without further ado, let's get back onto the ice because it's hockey season, it's WHL season, and as of most years, Max, January 11th, we would be recapping the WHL trade deadline because every year it's always on January 10th, but this year it's on January 17th, so we're previewing it. And there also already is a ton of stuff going on, so let's bring him in. The voice of the Lethbridge Hurricanes, Dustin Forbes. Dustin, there he is. Welcome to the show, Forbesy.
Hey, good to get catched up with you guys.
The reference game is already on point.
Clark, maybe you should be the one back in school. Hey, we'll get the grammar game again. We'll get that figured out.
Yeah, grammar school, maybe. Yeah, absolutely.
Who learned you how to spoke? That's my question.
Apparently nobody. Forbesy, thanks for checking in. I know, right now, I was trying to look into what the Hurricanes got going on. It seems like kind of a whole lot of nothing right now because a lot of cancellations and postponements and schedule changes. So I guess, give us an update right now. What's going on currently, and then we'll get into the whole season stuff.
Well, we haven't played for 15 days. They last played on December 28th, home and home against Swift Current coming out of the Christmas break. And then Swift had some positive cases. And as you would expect, Lethbridge had some positive cases. So we've kind of been stalled since then. But we get right back at it tomorrow, ironically, against Swift Current. They're here tomorrow, and it'll be the first of what'll be 4 games in the next 5 days for the Hurricanes. So go from 2 games in 15 days, 17 days plus the holiday break. So you're talking about 25 days, 2 games, and now 4 and 5. So we'll see. I was watching the Canucks and Panthers game earlier, and they were talking about, coming out of this break, they had 2 long extended breaks. How are the legs going to be? And it's kind of the same conversation for all these Western League clubs who have had a couple of weeks off and not, including the holiday break as well. So there hasn't been a whole heck of a lot going on since before Christmas, December 17th.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The Hurricanes themselves, Forbesy, this year, it's been kind of a up and down year by the looks of it. Again, you have the fewest, by the looks of it, I think if I'm looking at it correctly, you have the fewest games played in the Eastern Conference. Which doesn't help your points totals, but
no.
It looks like you're sitting around 500, right around there. The win percentage the Hurricanes got going on right now would put you in a playoff spot. You just got to play more games there in Lethbridge. So I guess give me a synopsis of how Lethbridge's season has gone so far and what the team needs to do going forward to maybe push themselves because they're not far out of a playoff spot.
No, and you mentioned the games in hand that they have. They have only played 27 games this year. They're 12-13-2 on the season. So by far fewer games than anybody else in the league, let alone the conference. They'll play starting tomorrow if all stays equal. Okay, and it's hard to say if everything's equal in the world that we live in right now. But if all things stay equal and they figure out a date for the only other game that's been postponed. So they had 4 games postponed. 3 have been rescheduled within the calendar. If they add the 4th one within the calendar before April 2nd, which is the scheduled end of regular season, Hurricanes have 41 games in the next 81 days starting tomorrow. So that's a heavy schedule. And as I mentioned, 4 in the next 5 starting tomorrow as we speak. So they're on the outside looking in right now in the playoff picture. I don't think they're as bad necessarily as the record indicates. They had a blip in late October, early November where they just couldn't really find their way. They lost 7 of 8. But you look at the start, it was a pretty good start. Going into the Christmas break, they were 7-0-1, I think, in their previous 8 or something like that. So it's a team that has some talent. They've made some moves. I'm excited for tomorrow's game, primarily because it's been since literally last year that I've been able to call a game. There's your dad joke for the episode. But
Yep,
we have 4 new players who haven't had an opportunity to get into the lineup because Peter Anholtz kind of got a jump on the trade aspect of things. So we'll have 4 new bodies in tomorrow. So that's always exciting to see kind of how they acclimatize to the new surroundings and what they can bring to a fresh lineup and a fresh opportunity.
Max, if you wouldn't mind bringing up the standings in the little box there, we can show just how close the bottom half of the Eastern Conference is. Calgary and Swift Current are occupying those last 2 spots. Now, if I'm not mistaken, they've gone back to just top 8 teams in the conference. Is that correct?
Yeah, so 1-2 will be the division winners, and then seeding 3 through 8 after that.
Right, and obviously you see at the top of the conference there is some heavy hitters, but really from Moose Jaw down, between the Lethbridge Hurricanes and Moose Jaw, it's 10 points. That's a hot couple of weeks, honestly. And with Moose Jaw, I don't know, you can maybe elaborate on this a little bit. Moose Jaw, I would say, isn't necessarily a team that has a ton of stars on their team either. So that could be a really interesting race from honestly all the way down to Lethbridge. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Moose Jaw's got a couple of talented guys. You think of Ryder Korzek and Damon Hunt. This is how you know I've been around for a bit too long. Dryden Hunt comes up. Damon Hunt on their back end, who are 2 NHL draft picks. The surprising thing about the Moose Jaw Warriors is they've got more NHL drafted guys than you would expect. I think they have 5 or 6 on their roster. And then after that, I mean, you talk about Denton Matejchuk, Jagger Furcus, some pretty high-end guys. So Braden Yeager, of course. So they've got a lot of skill up front. The Hurricanes will play Moose Jaw 5 more times. They've played them once. So if you're looking at that from where the Hurricanes are to the Moose Jaw, where they are seated in the 10 points, you're talking about, I think, quick look, it's 5 head-to-head matchups. I think the Hurricanes have 7 or 8 games in hand on them. So, but as you know, guys, and you hear this from players, from broadcasters, from coaches to management, games in hand means squat unless you win them. And so that's going to be the tough challenge for the Hurricanes, especially as we outlined before with the schedule 41 and 81. It's a pretty daunting. You're basically playing every other day from now until the end of the season.
Yeah, without a doubt, Dustin. I mean, obviously the Hurricanes being in Alberta, there's a few teams that have been making some splashes as the years progressed, and albeit a very, very strange scenario. It feels strange, obviously, and I'm assuming from a Hurricanes perspective of being only 27 games into a season and talking about the trade deadline. Like, it's again for a GM, it's got to be a very tall task to evaluate what you have, and again, the trade deadline being your biggest chance to acquire new assets. It'll be very interesting to see how the new bodies respond. But I guess a little further up the road in Edmonton, they've been making a splash or 2 or 3, however many you want to count them up as. What do you think this Oil Kings team maybe does in terms of this division? Are they without a doubt going to challenge the Winnipeg Ice for the class of the conference, or is this something where, again, being in Lethbridge from your perspective, if the Hurricanes get a few more games, we could see them climb up the standings and maybe match what Edmonton's put out despite acquiring a couple of big talents?
Yeah, I think Edmonton obviously is the cream of the crop in the division. I mean, if you look at the standings, Red Deer's right there, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but they had Jackson Vandalese today from the Calgary Hitmen, which will be a huge ad for them on the back end, literally and figuratively, because he's 6'7", 200 almost 50 pounds. So you're literally adding a lot of size on the back end. I think the Hurricanes perspective, I think for them, the playoffs is the mindset. And so getting into the playoffs, anything can happen. In my experience, a good example would be 2017, 2018. The Hurricanes trade Stuart Skinner, Giorgio Estefan, Tanner Nagel to Swift Current, who ultimately went on to win the championship that year. But the Hurricanes finished that season 500. They got in and they took Swift to Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Final that year. They had Swift Current right where they wanted them until Glenn Godden came back. And that was the difference in Game 5 and 6, ultimately the Hurricanes losing and the Broncos going on to win. So, and you hear it at the NHL level too. All we got to do is get in, and then anything can happen. Montreal, right? Like, who, I know Clarkie's going to get PO'd at me here, but who had the Habs coming back to beat the Leafs last year. And I know I see your Brooksy jersey there. I'm sorry, I'm bringing up.
It's still funny,
Yeah.
Clark. It's going to be funny 10 years from now. It's still funny, Dustin. Keep hammering away. I love it.
Yeah. So, like, who had Montreal not only winning in the first round, but going all the way to the Cup final? So
No, nobody needs to see that stuff, Clark.
If you get in, oh man,
I got to decorate the wall after for our Leaf stream later tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights.
I'm going to decorate mine and vomit after having a look at all that. Yikes.
I had to go get I have a roommate. He's got this. I don't own this Hurricanes jersey. It's my roommate's, but I was watching earlier and I'm like, he's got a Pats jersey and a Brooks jersey. I gotta have something here. Adam Brooks, my nemesis, not mine.
Possession's 9/10 of the law tonight, Forbes, right? So it's all good. It's your jersey.
Exactly.
Tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So I think from a Hurricanes perspective, honestly, it's just get in. I don't know if you're going to be able to catch Red Deer. Certainly not Edmonton. I mean, those are the two heavy hitters in the division. As far as the matchup between Edmonton or the comparison between Edmonton and Winnipeg, I actually like Edmonton better, frankly. And that might be a proximity bias, if you will, because I've only seen Winnipeg once this year where I've seen Edmonton a handful of times. But I think they just play a heavier, harder game, more conducive to playoffs than Winnipeg as of now. We'll see what happens coming up in the next week. What does Winnipeg do if they do anything? Does Edmonton do anything else to go with, the Pro-Cop trade earlier in the season and then getting Gooley? I mean, you're talking about 2 NHL drafted D-men that they've added. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited to see.
I guess with it being so, I want to say congested from 4th to 11th out of 12 teams. Is there going to be a lot of movement, do you expect, over the next 5-6 days with teams trying to establish themselves for, good playoff positioning? Or is this a situation where kind of the big guys have already moved and we might just see some depth things? Or what do you expect over the next 5 or 6 days?
It'll be interesting to see. I think the Vandalese trade might be the first domino to go, and we might see some other moves after that. The thing is, you have to, and you use the word congested, and it's a great word because it really is. Like 3, if you want to put Red Deer into the top 2 with Winnipeg and Edmonton, you can, because they've had a heck of a season under Steve Konowalchuk, and they add Vandalese, as we talked about. So if you look at 4 through, the Hurricanes are 10th right now, 11th right now in the conference, 10 points. So you have a good week, you have a bad week, you can go from 4th to 10th or 10th to 6th. Yep. So it's hard to maybe have those middle tier teams. I suspect will be a lot of standing pat or making a move or two if the Edmontons and the Winnipegs and in the West, Everett's and Kamloopses come calling for ads. We'll see what happens. I'm excited to see the next couple of days because in memory serves the trade deadline prior. So we're talking about 2020 trade deadline. I think a lot of the moves happened in the days leading up to the actual deadline. So, being 6 days away and the first domino going today, I'm excited. The names, of course, you can speculate. I mean, you talk about Damon Hunt from Moose Jaw. Did they move him? He'd be an overage next year. Will he come back? I don't know. Ryder Korczak, same situation there, but he's a late birthday, so the Rangers don't have to sign him right away. They have until the end of next year to get him inked. And then the big name, I think, at least in the Eastern Conference, and I'm prepping ahead to our game on Friday, it's against Prince Albert, would be Ozzy Weisblad. First-round pick of the San Jose Sharks. Does he get moved? They have already moved Caden Gooley. What can they get back in a trade for Ozzy? And who comes calling for that? That's the big question. Who's the suitor? Edmonton's kind of depleted a little bit in terms of assets, I think. Winnipeg, I think, has a bit more assets to play with. And if you're talking about out west, Everett and Kamloops are pretty damn good hockey teams too.
Yeah, Max, if you don't mind, can you put up those standings again? I brought up the Western Conference just because, we don't want to neglect them. It's just that, Dustin, you haven't seen any of the Western Conference teams in person.
True.
So I don't want to put you too much on the spot here, but from the rumor mill, from the whisper mill, what have you heard about the West? Because I'm sure that you've looked at some things, you've looked at numbers. We see Everett sitting on top, and they've made some moves as well this year. They had a few World Junior players on that team. Kamloops is a team that has been building for so many years, and I'm pumped to see them at the top because they've been that team that was kind of struggling for a bit, and now they're right there. Seattle has some strong players. Portland added a big goaltender a couple weeks ago. So what's the West got going on that we need to pay attention to?
The team that I'm most interested by out of the West is Kamloops. What do they do? I think they can probably upgrade an overage situation there with Nick McCary. McCary has a history with Sean Clouston, who's the head coach and general manager there in Medicine Hat. McCary was a Tiger when Sean was the coach and general manager there. But I think if you fancy yourself a team that can go on a deep playoff run and maybe challenge to go all the way out of the West, is Nick McCary in your group. Now, to Nick McCary's credit, he's had a pretty good season this year, 26 points in 31 games. So nothing to scoff at. But can you upgrade that situation? The other thing that I find interesting about Kamloops is if you look at Sean Clouston's history as a general manager in Medicine Hat, not usually the guy to go and do a big swing at the deadline. So does he just stand pat with the group that he has? Everett, on the other hand, they've got some good pieces to play with, and they've got a good team, and it's crazy how like any goaltender can go there and all of a sudden it's the second coming of, like it's like Dustin Wolf. Before that, it was Carter Hart. You go back before that, even further along, it's Leland Irving, right? Like it just seems they always have such good goaltending. And Cohen McInnes goes from Saskatoon to Everett and is the second coming of Patrick Waugh. So it's interesting to see, or should I say the second coming of Frederick Anderson?
Yes.
Yes. So many sore spots
Jack
to tap
Campbell.
at. I love it. Yeah.
There you go. Thank you. Jack
you
Campbell. Yes.
Get to 2022, Forbesy.
I would say Justin Pogge, Forbesy.
Pogge, there you go. Yeah.
Tuukka Rask.
I was just going to say, Tuukka just signed today. There's an old Leaf. There you go.
I forgot this show is called Chirp Clark. The Chirp Clark cast.
When you're the resident Leafs fan, I mean, that
it's
kind of comes. Yeah, exactly. It's 67. So anyway, Everett's an interesting case study. I think Kamloops it will be an interesting case study too. And I love deadline time, man. I
love it.
From a Hurricanes perspective, I don't know if they'll do anything else because they've done a few moves over the last week and a half, and talking to Peter Anholt, I go in every day and I talk to Pete. I'm like, hey, you got anything going on? And it's been pretty quiet the last few days. And so we'll see. I don't know. It's one of those expect the unexpected, right? As the broadcaster and communications guy, I've been told in deadlines past, I don't think we're going to do anything. And then all of a sudden there's 4 or 5 trades. So I think it really depends on who's calling and what they're calling about, and then what the offers are. And that goes not only from Lethbridge's perspective, but everywhere else too.
Yeah, as the famous Bobby Margarita always says, every trade deadline, it only takes one phone call to change a whole lot of stuff. And just from here in Regina, Forbes, you'll know too, like John Paddock is not shy when it comes to making some moves. And we'll let you go with this one. I just want your thoughts on this, if you don't mind. Riker Evans is a name that kind of strikes me as a big potential moving target because they just went out and claimed. Now I always say this name wrong.
Nathan Salami.
Salami. Thank you. I always say Salome, and then there's the salami thing going on. Nathan yeah. So Nathan,
it's got to be an endorsement deal tour there.
Nathan with an Neithan.
Yeah, exactly. He's not easy. But they went out and claimed him off waivers because I guess there was kind of an injury thing with his trade to Victoria. He's back in Brandon. Too many 20-year-olds. Now Regina has him. So now they have too mmany 20-year-olds. And I think Riker Evans, to me, screams getting some value back instead of just dumping a guy. Obviously, they have 6, I think, 19-year-olds on that team. So they can only bring 3 back next year. And next year is going to be the year you think in Regina that they want to give Connor Bedard the best chance to win. Or else they have to start trading Connor Bedard. That was kind of what I was saying earlier. So what do you think? Do they make a bunch of moves? Do you see John Paddock getting those phones busy in the next few days?
I'm sure he's going to work the phones. I mean, he wouldn't be doing his job and doing his due diligence to work his phones, be it adding or subtracting, right? I think it's interesting because they're in a situation where essentially they have a 2-year window with Connor Bedard. And so one of those years, as we know, is this year. And so what do? Nathan Salemi is a depth defenseman as an overage. Riker Evans absolutely will have value, but who wants to add that piece? And that's the question. I mean, Red Deer theoretically was a suitor. I don't think they're a suitor now, pulling the move today to get the overager in Jackson Vandalese. I don't think Edmonton's a suitor. I think they like their 3 guys. Because Carter Such is a great player and Josh Williams is a great player. So, and Simon Kubicek's had a fantastic season for them. They're 3 in Edmonton. So, maybe Kamloops, right? We were talking about, do you upgrade Nick McCarry? But then, okay, if we do that move, thinking of Kamloops, add Riker Evans, great defenseman, overage guy. Is Nick McCarry the odd guy out? And if Nick McCarry watches this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Nick. Just for sake of argument. But then you got to supplement that offense that you lose from a Nick McCarry. So it's an interesting situation. And then in John's case, you got to walk the line of not acting or giving the illusion that you're a seller right now, because you want to try and be a team that competes with Connor Bedard. So. Right. It's an interesting situation. It'll be very interesting now that they have added a 4th overager and see what happens. So I would love to be a general manager and also hate to be a general manager too, right? Because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And there's always going to be 2 sides of it. There's always going to be the people that hate the trade and there's always going to be people that love the trade. It's very polarizing. And this week is definitely one of the hardest weeks of the year for a general manager. So, and assessing, like we were talking before, the congested aspect, Regina's right in that mix of that 10-point gap right now between being 10th or being 4th. So, the way Connor's come back from the World Juniors, which so sadly got canceled, he's been on an absolute tear, or was on a tear before they got paused too. So I'm looking forward to it. Should be a good week.
Absolutely. One of my favorite times when I was with the Pats, me and Phil Andrews had offices right next to each other, and we would always, sneak up by the general managers or like the meeting room, the boardroom, and put a glass up against the door and try to see what we could hear. Yeah, exactly. I always loved those days. It was always so fun to kind of feel the intensity. But Forbesy, we got to let you go because we are fresh out of time and we got to get going here. But thanks for coming on. I feel a whole lot better about the WHL now than I did before. So appreciate the time, buddy.
Hey, my pleasure. Great to get catched up with you guys.
Nailed it.
Take care, Dustin. Have a great night. Best of luck in the next 4 or 5. Hey.
Thanks, guys. The T will be key for the voice.
There you go.
Take care, Forbesy.
Yeah, they always forget to say that, those 31 games in however many days are tough on broadcasters too.
Exactly, right?
Those voice boxes only last for so many hours.
It's the ultimate conditioning stint for not only the players, but the coaches, the general managers, broadcast crews, social media teams, all of it, right? It truly is a family, and that's why everybody typically gets a ring at championship time, right?
Absolutely. Max, let's really cruise through the NFL playoff brackets and just get some quick thoughts. We got to cruise out of here because we are heading over to the Hockey Podcast Network in just a few seconds. I'll bring it up here. You can go ahead.
Good stuff. Hey.
So the Titans clinched number 1 spot in the AFC and the Packers clinched it in the NFC. The matchups we got going on, the Chiefs and Steelers. I guess quick thoughts on that one, Max. You got to think the Chiefs are heavily favored as the Steelers just barely dragged themselves into the playoffs this year.
Oh, yeah, zero question. But Big Ben getting one last playoff game, I mean, that's the script everybody wanted ultimately.
Absolutely.
Right? Maybe not everybody in Los Angeles for Chargers fans, but that's okay. LA's team's the Rams, and they're going to be right in the mix, hopefully, all the way through. So,
just
good to see.
Cracking the original 16 hard seltzer here as we get the NFL talk going on. Bills Patriots. This one to me could be the matchup of the week for the AFC. I love the idea of, those Bills that were kind of the favorites going into the year. The Patriots have kind of established themselves and their division rivals. It's going to be cold. It's going to be awesome. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, without question, right? I mean, NFC East rivals, it's going to be a really, really interesting matchup all the way through. It's going to be cold in Buffalo, and we know what happened the last time it was cold in Buffalo. Hopefully a little less snow. Mac Jones might be forced to throw the ball a few more times than he did in the first trip to Buffalo this year, but it's always good to see the trilogy take place in the playoffs when it comes to divisions. So it'll be a really interesting matchup. Definitely one to be keeping an eye on, which I believe is that one on Saturday?
I think, yeah, maybe. Yes. Yeah.
Whatever the schedule outlines anyways, but I'll see what I can
Yeah,
find
absolutely.
in terms of
that. Yeah, if you can pull that up, I will. We'll look at the Bengals Raiders here as well. The Bengals Raiders, again, the Bengals winning their division for the first time in a while. Extremely exciting for that city. And the Raiders, I'm one of the teams I'm almost surprised to see here. So I'm hoping personally, kind of hope the Bengals rout the Raiders this weekend. Let's move over to the NFC. We do have to speed along here. The Bucks and the Eagles. Again, the Eagles weren't a team that a whole lot of people were counting. There weren't many chickens being counted in Philadelphia at the beginning of this season, and they snuck their way into the playoffs as well. They're going to face Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady's always had a good history against the Eagles in the playoffs alone, and now he's with the Bucks, who are pretty dang good.
Well, I don't know. Last time he played him in the Super Bowl, it didn't quite go Tom Brady's way. So
you're right.
I guess we shall.
Not so much.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it'll be a very interesting matchup. Certainly, if you're a gambling person, you're definitely taking the Bucks at home. But the Eagles, man, it's a formidable running offense, right? And Jalen Hurts is a slippery quarterback. So again, certainly, as with all the playoff matchups, the cliche goes, it'll be an interesting one. But
yeah, I hear you, buddy. Cowboys, 49ers. It's that classic matchup. I love this one because of, the classic feel to it. You got the old Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? You got the 49ers, the catch, the drive, all that history with the 49ers. This one's going to be, I hope, one of the ones that we look back on in a couple weeks and be like, that was just such a great matchup. We'll see. But again, I think the Cowboys have a much better team on paper, but I have a feeling the 49ers are going to be a little scrappy. What do you think about this one?
Oh, yeah, the Niners are definitely going to be scrappy. And being an LA Rams fan, you know how scrappy the San Francisco 49ers are, obviously pulling that one out on Sunday in Week 18 against us in our own home barn to secure a playoff spot. So I certainly wouldn't be all that comfy if I'm the boys even at home. The Niners will certainly make this a contest and a half, and it would not shock me at all to see them walk away the winners in this one.
Absolutely. Rod Peterson would be so devastated, but overall it would be hilarious if that does happen, because you know how the Cowboys fans are. Rams, Cardinals, give me a couple. You got about 30 seconds to spill your guts on this one.
Rams. Let's go. I'll take 3 seconds. That's all I got. We'll talk next Tuesday because it's the Monday nighter. So it'll definitely be the one freshest in everybody's minds after Super Wild Card weekend. So I'm very much looking forward to that on Monday night.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we will be picking all 6 of these games in our squad select this week, Max. As we do in the playoffs, we pick every game. So I don't know exactly. I think how it works is I pick a team, you get the other one. Back and forth. You won the regular season. Congrats, my good man. Barely.
Later, a dog fight. That was a half game margin.
But
the Steelers screwed you in that tie with the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I told you when it happened that was going to screw me at some point, and it did. Yeah. But either way, let's get out of here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the SquadCast tonight. We are jumping over to the Hockey Podcast Network. We're not done yet tonight. We're going to jump over there. The Leafs and Vegas Golden Knights are just starting up in a few minutes here, so we're going to launch it over there. If you want to check that out, it's THPN on YouTube. THPN, the Hockey Podcast Network. You can find it there. We have the link on our Facebook page if you're watching on Facebook. We will tweet out the link and share it and everything as well if you're on Twitter. So make sure you check us out there. And Max, thanks for we squawked it in here, Max.
We squawked by. I hope you're, man. You know what? Maybe we should lay off the seltzers here. The terminology and the English is certainly not of the highest caliber tonight. But with that being said,
I'm making up words.
Leafs. You're making up words, but I get it. It's pregame. It's Knights. It's Leafs. You guys got some avenging to do after that awful Saturday showing. So it's going to be interesting to see. But as you said, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you over on the Hockey Podcast Network very shortly. Bye for now.